I think we've got a much more serious situation now in communist infiltration of the CIA.
And even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
I'm Joseph McCarthy, and I'm a former senator of the United States of America. I believe in the freedom and liberty of the American people. All my life, I've worked so hard to make sure these damn commies stay out of our country, and I'm extremely proud of what I've accomplished so far. I was born in the great city of Grand Chute, in the great state of Wisconsin. People say I dropped out of high school, but I like to say I dabbled in academia before going into law. In the beginning of my political career, I began as a Democrat. But after losing the district attorney position, I just didn't feel home with the Democrats. They just want big government, and I want small. And by small, I mean me.
How would you describe your rise to power, especially to the accusations that you were corrupt as a politician?
Well, I think that's just hearsay. Hell, I joined the Marines. I fought for my country in World War II, and people think I was corrupt? I remember when I ran for Wisconsin Senate against Robert La Follette. In fact, not only did he not enlist, but he also made huge profits from the investments while I was fighting for my country.
Critic Arnold Beichmann also mentioned that you received support from communist unions such as the United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers. And that was advantage since Lafont was anti-communist.
What? I don't see how that's particularly relevant. I mean, yeah, sure, the US was in a state of great turmoil at the time of fighting Nazis or whatever, but come on, do you really think that affected my senatorial election?
Historian Ethan Theo Harris stated that the rise of your political power was due to the anti-communist views of the Truman presidency in the 50s, and that it was a logical continuation of the policies in the Truman presidency, including the Smith Act of 1940, that made it practically illegal for one to join the American Communist Party. So how much of your success would you actually attribute to yourself?
100%. And whoever says so otherwise is a commie. In all my years, I've learned that in order to convince people of things, you sometimes just gotta make things up. You just have to. When I helped produce personalized manuals on how to spot a commie, my secretary asked, hey Joe, you want us to fact check? And I told him, wait, can you scroll down? Yeah, I told him, don't worry about it. What the public doesn't know won't hurt them. Even though I accused 205 people in the State Department of being communist without any evidence, we know that they're all pretty much kissing Khrushchev's ass in secret.
Aren't you worried about all that false information being passed around, or endangering those who are falsely accused?
I don't really understand the words falsely accused. Is that a metaphor for something? Because in my knowledge, as long as you can't name 10 things wrong with the USSR, you're a communist, as stated in my handy-dandy booklet, 100 Things You Should Know About Communism in the USA. What is communism? It's, as stated in the handbook you didn't even bother to read, a system by which one small group seeks to rule the world. And there is absolutely no doubt about that. Look at Stalin. Look at Mao. Look at... Okay, that's all I got. I want to tell you something the Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas once said. He said, "We are developing tolerance, only for the orthodox point of view on world affairs, intolerance for new or different approaches." Now, I couldn't help thinking that he had aimed his statement about me. He seemed to be criticizing my methods of only looking at things from one point of view. Well, let me tell you, Justice William O. Douglas is wrong. Look what happens when you start empathizing with your enemy. You get communists! Look at Owen Lattimore. Look at Val Lorwin. Look at the Rosenbergs. Every single one turned communist because they empathize with the Soviets. As long as we stand united in one mindset, we stay strong. One mind, one heart, one opinion, my opinion.
And what did you aim to achieve through the trials?
I believe I prepared the public well for the great danger of Sputnik in 1957. In my opinion, if I had not heightened American awareness of Soviet Union's development in space technology, we would have never put a man on the moon first, or more importantly, gained an advantage in nuclear weaponry.
So you predicted that the Soviets would launch the first ever satellite?
Well, I certainly suspected they were gaining and planning to overtake us in nuclear technology by 1957. We as Americans need to root out any trace of communists in our country. We need to avoid being stabbed in the back. People are bound to their homeland, the United States, and it is our homeland, and we must protect it at all costs. I restore our country's character and courage, gave hope and confidence, as well as helped to establish order and purpose.
Truman didn't seem to think so. He once said, "I think that the greatest asset the Kremlin has is Senator McCarthy," and thought that you were destructive to U.S. foreign policy and national unity. What is your take?
Truman was an and his mistake too. We all know how helpful my policies were. I once wrote to Truman that if he didn't take action on the 57 communists in the State Department, he would allow the Democratic Party to become a bedfellow of communism. And look at it now. There's Bernie Sanders who wants to shell out bags of money for people who don't deserve it. What a loser. I don't care if he's actually socialist. We all know that socialist means communist and communist means bad.
What do you think of Supreme Court Justice William Douglas's quote, "The communist threat inside the country has been magnified and exalted far beyond its realities. Irresponsible talk by irresponsible people has fanned the flames of fear." Wouldn't words like that from respective, well-known people make you re-examine your reasoning?
No reasoning needs to be re-examined. The communist threat inside this country has not been magnified and exalted beyond its realities because it is real. Communist talks and actions have fanned the flames of fear. We cannot give in to its negligence. Don't re-examine your reasoning because that leads to self-doubt. Self-doubt causes laxness and creates holes in our security through which the communists can sneak in. Before you know it, America will have fallen to Stalin.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Humans, we're all the same. Some people criticize me for being too harsh on the communists, but look at America now. In 2015, half a century after me, the same thing is happening with the dirty jihadist Muslims in our country. The great Donald Trump is trying to stop Muslim immigrants from entering the USA and states that all Muslims should be required to have a special ID. You can't change human nature because my kind of human nature is always right. You gotta do what you gotta do to save America. We're also seeing the same kind of resistance I faced in the 1950s from Truman and Eisenhower in the USA today. Liberals calling themselves Americans are obstructing Trump's plans to weaken ISIS and to make America great. If you don't believe me, turn to other reliable sources, like my #1 fan, the conservative and true American Ann Coulter. She says that liberals hindered the anti-communist McCarthyism just as they are now to the war on terrorism. You can't change the nature of the right, like me, but you also can't change the nature of the wrong, like the liberals.
What would you say to people like Pulitzer Prize-winning author and essayist Paul Greenberg, who said, I quote, "Miss Coulter has somehow managed to channel the malicious spirit of her hero, Joe McCarthy, and she's having much of the same devastating effect on conservatives' reputation."
I embrace that statement. I agree wholeheartedly with Miss Coulter's views, and I do believe she is channeling my spirit. I must point out, however, that Paul Greenberg is un-American, and if I were still in power today, I would have investigated him for communist learnings. His views are way too kind to the Soviets and way too critical of me.